Hey guys, it's Stella Jones, your sassy paranormal romance author. Thanks for tuning in to tonight's live. I'm so excited. Tonight is the announcement for the giveaway that I've had over the last week. So, in approaching 2,000 followers, I wanted to do like a giveaway of thanks for folks. And so for the last week, people have been liking, commenting, sharing, tagging a couple of book lovers. And then tonight, I went ahead and we did like a random one of those little spin the wheel uh, giveaways, and we picked three winners. So I announced them a few minutes ago um, on my regular page, but I'm so excited. I'm only 13 away from 2,000. So even in the last week, I've done so great in terms of getting more people to follow and enjoy the content. So thank you to everybody who participated. And if you didn't win this time, don't worry, because um, there will be more giveaways. I have another published work coming out at the beginning of 2025. And then also I have another uh, uh, Goodreads giveaway that I'm going to be doing. I will announce that probably next week for when that's going to start. So I always try and have something a little more enticing. Also, for anybody who's not following my page, please follow, because I also launched something called The Vault this week. And The Vault is a subscription only. It's a free subscription to my website, which is stellajonesauthor.com. And The Vault, you get sneak peeks, spicy excerpts, an, preview announcements for upcoming works. You get all of these different things. Thanks so much for joining. So if you don't follow my page here, or if you're not following my website, please follow so you can have the exclusive content of The Vault, where you'll have the spicy scenes, you'll have book excerpts, there'll be some author musings in there. And I've been working on The Vault for like over a year now, and it's finally ready, and it's so nice. So if you guys are watching tonight, please make sure that you head over to my website at stellajonesauthor.com and check that out. You can go straight. Oh, and thank you for the hearts. You can go straight to my link tree, and there's a link that'll take you straight to The Vault. And as a book lover, especially as a romance book lover, I absolutely love the spicy scenes. I used to just go to Amazon and review different books and just go straight for the spicy scene. And if the spicy scene was on fire, then I knew the rest of the book was going to be great. So if you all really, if you love romance the way that I do, please check out The Vault, because sometimes what you want is just a little bit of spice. So, and that way you can get a taste and then see, if this is something that you like, if it's something you want to know more about. And as an author, especially somebody who is a romance junkie, I started my writing journey. I started with trying my best to master the intimate scenes, and not always the actual act, but even the buildup, the seduction, the foreplay, the everything. And so I'm really interested to know if people really like just these little snippets where you're getting just like a little bit of fire, a little bit of spice. So anyway, The Vault came out today. So if you are following and you like the spicy stuff, please check out The Vault, and you can go to stellajonesauthor.com, or you can go to my link tree, and there'll be a one of the tabs for it. It's probably right at the top. Will take you to the subscription site. So I'm really excited about that. Now, the other thing I wanted to talk about is for those who won the PR box, and like I said, there will be many more giveaways to come. What you get are all 4 of my published works. So you get A Human Story, which is my first published work from 2018. Excuse me. And then you get 4 stories, which is a collection of novellas and very short stories. And then, volume 1 and volume 2 of my origin stories. And they are all interrelated, but they can and do stand alone. Thanks so much for joining. So all 4 of these you get in the PR box from the giveaway for today. And I'm actually going to do a reading from one of the stories in 4 stories. So all of my books, the storylines are interrelated. I write about a species of beings that are genetically wolves, but they can and do exist as humans. And when you meet the humans and the wolves from these stories, they're emerging from a very barbaric war. And as they emerge, this war happens in Bear Mountain, which is in upstate New York. And then they migrate down to Manhattan, where they restore themselves financially, physically, legally, all of that good stuff. And then once they recover from the war, then they start exploring romance, passion, etc. So, and thanks to everybody who's been popping in and taking a listen. So when you meet these characters, they are ripe for passion and romance and having a great time in their existence since they've been through all of this stuff. Now, the origin stories, if you win the PR box, I recommend starting with the origin stories. These 2 tales explore a menage between a human woman and 2 wolves, all 3 of whom have survived this barbaric war. And the way that the woman, the human woman, Dessa, the way that she celebrates surviving all of this travesty is by pursuing one of her intimate fantasies, which is to have a menage. And she lures in 2 of these wolves who are also brothers to fulfill her fantasy. In the backdrop of all that is also the paranormal universe that's being explored and discussed. So I recommend, if you win the PR box, and there'll be more giveaways to come, that I would start with the origin stories, volume 1 and volume 2. But you can literally start anywhere. I write all of these books to be standalones. So they all explore this paranormal universe where the beings are, the paranormal beings are genetically wolves, but they can and do exist as humans. And when you meet them, they are emerging from this barbaric war. So I'm actually going to be reading from 4 stories tonight. And every time I do one of these readings, it's always a great feeling because I've been publishing every 6 months, I don't get a chance to revisit so many of my favorite characters and stories. So I'm going to be reading from the 4th story, actually. And this is Petty and Sesha. So in 4 stories, all of these tales, they're entitled by the characters, the couple that's being focused upon in the story. So this is Petty and Sesha. And one of the things that I tell you guys every time we do these lives is that these paranormal beings, these wolves, are emerging from a very barbaric war. And so oftentimes that's all I say. But tonight I'm going to read how one of these wolves who survives the war, what happens to him during this war and this trauma. And so that's what I'm going to read from right now. August 1st, 2013. The slice of the blade struck his loins as if the metal was scorched by fire. The sentry's vision was at once eclipsed with a burst of pulsating dark gray halos and the complete loss of color as he battled to remain conscious. The young wolf heard himself holler in distress and had no idea that his limbs reached up to gouge both eyes of his enemies, causing the beast to release the blade in time to spare one testicle, although its viability was questionable. Petty reached down and physically returned what was left of his scrotal contents into their housing, then reached for loose rags that were next to him on the wooden pallet to slow the pulse of blood from his body to the wall beside him. When his breathing slowed down and his vision returned, he rolled over to find that he not only blinded his captor, but had nearly decapitated his assailant with his own knife. It was then that Petty looked down and found the rigid hunting blade gripped tight in his left hand. He wasn't sure how much time he had until the remainder of the enemy returned from the wild, so he stripped the clothing off the corpse beside him and got dressed. He stuffed the blood-saturated cloth down the front of his pants and screamed out when his hand bolstered the rough fabric against his wounds. Thank the fates that the steel-toe boots of the dead wolf also fit his feet, which had not worn proper shoes in the months he had been kept as a prisoner, starved almost to death, beaten, tortured, and nearly castrated by this horde of monsters who would devour their own simply because they could. He'd be back to settle his vengeance once he was healed and had located the rest of his pack. But for now, if he were to survive, he had to get out. When the pup got up that first time, the roar of excruciating torment sent him to his knees. The adrenaline and fight for survival initially blunted his body's perception of pain, but now it was unmuted and blaring against the walls of his skull. He once again heard the agony of his own cry, as if from a foreigner in a room down the hall. When he was first brought here, he remembered seeing a storage room door open and the stack of first aid supplies. There was nothing around him to tell the time of night, so he grabbed the one water bottle on the ground beside the door and braced his arm against the wall to steady himself as he limped to the hall. Petty looked up at the ceiling. He ran his hand along the surface beneath him and felt concrete. I'm limiting that word. The wolf panicked when he realized he'd passed out. He pushed up and literally had to will himself not to black out again. As soon as the next wave of pain passed, he sat up against the wall and bent his knees to keep himself steady. Instead of moving again, he peered down the hall in either direction and saw the open door to the supply room. This time he knew better and simply scooted down the hall on his butt until he reached the doorway and crawled into the small space. There was a medium-sized soiled cloth bag. He filled it with disinfectant, gauze, packets of antibiotic ointment, and a few hidden sacks of snack bags that had probably been stolen from a grocery store. The rough, unsteady breathing scared him until he realized it was his own. The pup gave himself a few moments to still the panic that had begun to consume him. His terror was once again upon him, and he considered how he would get out of this place alive. Catch a breath, he spoke to himself and immediately felt calm. He wasn't sure if it was the fates or his own will for survival, but his voice and the desire to live propelled him forward. He could only recall brief flashes of memory from his escape, just enough to relate to Autry that the first time he found his reflection in a mirror after locating his pack's camp 3 miles from where his captors held him hostage, his hair had been scorched just like the blood that drained from his body with that last assault. So that was pretty intense, but the beauty of Petty's story is that he's such a charismatic character that it balances out retelling what happened to him while he was in captivity, which was pretty brutal. There are a couple of other wolves who have similar stories, but Petty, I thought it was very important to relay what happens to him because it was his drive for survival is the only way he survives, because the amount of trauma that he sustains, you find out later on that most of the other paranormals who experience the type of trauma that I just read about for Petty, that they didn't survive. So I love telling his story. I love reading more about his story because he is such a compelling and charismatic and funny character. And he's also, a very sensual being, because most of the wolves are also very sensual and attractive and all of this great stuff. So thanks to everybody who was here for that reading. I'm going to do another one tomorrow. I might do another scene from Petty, maybe like something where there's a little bit more humor, because what I read just now was so heavy. Maybe tomorrow I'll balance it out with one of his humorous sections, because he's a great character. So for those of you guys, first of all, thanks to everybody who gave me hearts. I truly appreciate it. I have come to enjoy these lives. They were very intimidating for me at the beginning, but I love coming on and getting to read these characters that I haven't seen in so long, or read in so long. And so tomorrow, I think I'm going to do another scene from Petty and give you the other side. So tonight I had to unfortunately read about his trauma. And tomorrow I'll read a little snippet from his comedic side, his sassy side, so that you can see that it's not just the barbarism that we're focusing on in some of these tales, that you'll also get, of course, we'll get to the romance as well, but I want to give you a little bit of his humor, and what makes him such a compelling character, and why I wanted him to have his own story. So thank you to everybody, and thanks so much. I think this might be the most hearts that I've gotten um, in a live. So I really, really thank everybody. And if you guys have read my works, please let me know if there's something specific you would like for me to read. Also, I know a lot of folks have been picking up my origin series. And in these two, probably because this is like the most spicy that I've written so far. I've written about a menage between a human woman and two wolves. All three of them have emerged and survived a very barbaric war. And Dessa, the human woman, the way that she celebrates her survival is by pursuing one of her intimate fantasies, which is to experience a menage. And she's able to lure in two wolves who also are brothers in order to fulfill her fantasies. And that is also in the backdrop of this paranormal universe where the wolves are emerging from war and starting to restore their foothold on the world and society. So if at all you guys have been exploring my page and you want to start anywhere, I would start with volume 1 and volume 2 of my origin series, because they're very quick novellas. They're very concentrated bursts of story, sensuality, and of course, the laying the foundation for the paranormal universe. Now, also, I also love my full-length novels. These are my modern era stories. So these explore what happens to the wolves after they've recovered from war and reestablished their own families and pack and cultures and all that stuff. So A Human Story, which was my first published work in 2018, and then 4 stories from 2022. So these are really all great stories. And if I haven't mentioned, all of the stories are interrelated, but they can and do stand alone. So there's always a paranormal element. Now, I will say that A Human Story, the reason why it's entitled A Human Story is because it was the first of my stories that had both of the main characters were human. Up until that point, all of the other stories had had at least one paranormal as the lead character. Now, there is never a story that I write that doesn't have a paranormal element. But for A Human Story, the 2 main characters are human. So I really, really love all of these stories. So thanks to everybody who joined. And I will see you all tomorrow night. And have a good one. Peace.